All right, so Red Union reveals plan to defend workers' rights. Now, some of my supporters brought to my attention the work of Red Union based in Queensland. Now, as you know, many of the unions throughout our country have actually failed to defend the rights of their members. Of course, we think here in Melbourne to the construction worker protests, but all throughout the country, we see unions not standing up for their members' rights to choose whether or not they want to take the vaccine. We see these vaccine mandates rolled out by state premiers, whether it's Western Australia, here in Victoria, even after the Prime Minister came out and said it would be up to businesses to decide. But what we see is that it seems to be up to premiers to decide. Now, Red Union has actually been taking on these matters and actually taking measures to seek to defend the rights of workers from all across the country that are facing these types of mandates. So I'm going to show you a little bit of information. So this is the website right here. There it goes. It says support without the politics. Okay. It says here, our associations fight to protect you, not promote a political party. It goes on to say every membership dollar supports you, your workplace issues. Okay. So I was very curious to see more about this organization and to understand it. So I seeked out an interview. That's right. I seeked out an interview with the director, the director of Red Union. So I'm going to play that for you in just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. I have it up here. Okay, so his name is Jack McGuire. He's the director, and the interview goes for around 10 minutes. To me, this definitely looks like an organization worth investigating if you feel let down by your current union, or if you're seeking representation in relation to your rights, your bodily autonomy. These guys are taking it on. So I'm going to play the interview so you can meet the director, Jack, and should you be interested, you can make contact with Red Union to ask them further questions. So I'm going to play the interview with you right now. All right, now we are joined here today by Jack McGuire. He is the director of Red Union Group. Jack, welcome to MCJ Report. I've given your union a bit of an overview for our audience, but if you wouldn't mind, in your own words, could you please talk a little bit about some of the measures that your organisation is taking to support people, not just in Victoria, but around the country, in relation to concerns that many employees have right now, specifically in relation to the jab mandate?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Morgan. Look, we started about 6 years ago trying to provide an alternative union for people that didn't like paying so much for their dues, and they wanted more of a less partisan approach to unionism. So we started again 6 years ago with a nurses union, NPAQ. It was half the price of the pre-existing union. And in its constitution, it prohibited money going to political parties or in-kind support to political parties, which I guess then allows it to just play a straight bat. In relation to these mandates, it's now grown bigger than Ben-Hur, and we're trying to keep up with the growth. And there have been some growing pains, as you may expect. But in relation to the jab mandates, we took the very, very controversial view that if someone pays us membership dues, that we feel like we should help them. Some of the other unions seem to have cut their members loose, and it's interesting now that the ANMF in Victoria are now talking about consultation and risk assessing, and I believe they're doing something on Thursday in relation to that. After we had mounted a very significant ground campaign in Queensland, getting our members to request that risk assessment so they can have that conversation about the jab. Some of our members may even roll up their sleeve and get the jab should they like what they hear. But the problem is the employer hasn't taken that necessary step under OHS laws. They haven't consulted with their staff under OHS laws, And in those circumstances, we launched a significant judicial review on Friday in Queensland, and we're looking at doing similar in Victoria, because even as the directions say in Victoria, the OHS laws still apply, and they should be obliged, and employers are obliged to follow them. So if an employer is looking at standing down employees after they have asked for that risk assessment, and after they have exercised a workplace right to see that risk assessment and to be part of that process, I think employers would find themselves in a little bit of hot water.
Thank you. I appreciate the insight. Now, I'd like to just ask you a little bit more about this risk assessment in terms of OH and S. In general, are employers required to conduct such an assessment if introducing some type of control or safety measure in the workplace?
Yes, of course. It's mandatory that they do that and show some sort of thinking behind that, so that it can be, I guess, stress tested and reviewed. Problem here is there just isn't anything at all in some circumstances. And this is, government bodies we're talking about. Comparatively, you go and have a look at something like a Qantas. They have a really big, robust, developed risk assessment plan and a three-tiered exemption process. One of them, I believe, is even speaking to a scientist. None of this is being done at all in any of these public sector employer bodies, and it's cause for real concern that the government is making rules that they expect even just the private sector to abide by, but they can't even get their own public bodies to follow. And as you said, it's a total necessity. There are Australian standards that they should follow, the model rules in terms of eliminating risk. They don't have to follow them, but if they don't follow them, they need to prove to us why and what they've done in the alternative. And the alternative cannot be that we haven't done anything.
Understood. Now, would you mind painting a little bit of a picture in relation to what does it look like in terms of your members who you're representing in this particular challenge, the challenge of producing risk assessments or lack thereof, and how that relates to employees' potential termination?
Well, in Queensland, for instance, in our judicial review that, as I said, when they just filed on Friday, we say there was something like 2,800 pieces of correspondence that were ignored by Queensland Health, which they have an obligation to respond to, as each of those are elevations of industrial disputes, and you must engage an employer with an industrial dispute. You can't just ignore them. But it seems in this case they found it was too hot to handle. So obviously those then who are exercising workplace rights and are then suffer some sort of punitive measure or adverse action after they have exercised their workplace right, well, that gives rise to further actions under the Fair Work Act, and indeed in the Industrial Relations Act in Queensland and the Industrial Relations Acts around the country.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And for workers out there who are concerned about these mandates, and it's becoming a very urgent matter here in Victoria, how would be the best way for concerned employees to reach out to you and to potentially participate in similar action as to what you're engaging in Queensland?
I know, good question. I know that the deadline is fast approaching in Victoria, and that is the deadline that we're now working towards more than anything. So for your Victorian audience, but even for those interstate as well, I'd recommend going to redunion.com.au. There's a list of all of our unions. We've only just today launched a miscellaneous workers union, and we will then be monitoring and assisting those members with requesting how they can request their risk assessment, how they can then have a conversation with their employer about that risk assessment if there is one there. And if there isn't one, we have a number of letters to escalate that process, and perhaps it may culminate in a judicial review in Victoria as well.
Thank you very much. Jack, I just want to say that I think it's fantastic to see you and your organisation standing up for workers' rights. It's something that we have really taken a lot of pride in here in Australia for a long time, and I think it's sad to see so many of the very well-established unions seemingly throwing their workers under the bus. So to everybody at home, that's redunion.com.au. Now, Jack, before we wrap the interview up, do you have any final words for the people of Victoria and Australia?
Only that, look, we're doing everything that we can. We are stretched absolutely to the limit. I know some people have been trying to get in touch with us and are struggling to do that. Phone is the best way, not by email. We are endeavouring to get back to everybody who does that, but our process that we have in place can be done without speaking to us. It's all available online through our dashboard. Even the first 1 or 2 steps are available for free on the homepage of any one of those union websites, which we're just trying to help people and help them protect their position. So I would encourage everyone, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what. I mean, every employer should be doing this regardless, even in the private sector, and a mandate doesn't apply. So I would recommend that people are asking their employers for a risk assessment, which then will prompt some sort of informed scientific discussion about how they're assessing COVID, the risk, how they're minimising the risk, and what possible alternatives there are. I mean, Vice President Dean mentioned in the Fair Work Commission in her dissenting opinion that rapid antigen testing was a very live option, particularly in circumstances where you can control your workplace. For instance, a school, they're worried in New South Wales about ventilation. They're worried in New South Wales about unvaccinated mixing with the vaccinated. If everyone, including the vaccinated, took a rapid antigen test at the school gates, you would leave COVID-19 at the school gates, and that would then obviously allow students to not wear masks in class, and it would also allow the vaccinated and the unvaccinated teachers to, frolic freely around the school because no one in there would have COVID, so therefore they're at zero risk of passing on COVID-21.
Very good. Now, Jack, thank you so much for your time, and once again, for the viewers at home, that is redunion.com.au. Jack, we hope to have you back on the show soon.
Thanks very much, Morgan. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, a very big thank you to Jack. Jack from Red Union. It's great to see the work that your organisation is doing. Now, ladies and gentlemen at home, if you'd like to get in touch with this particular organisation, just hop on over to their website. It's redunion.com.au. I put the web address in the chat, so certainly can't hurt to send a message or anything like that. And I also just wanted to point out in full transparency that I am not associated with Red Union, as in I don't have any financial interest with them. I'm not getting paid to promote their services or anything like that. Simply, I was referred to Red Union. I looked at the organisation, made a determination that they have merit. I like what they're doing, and so I thought I must relay this information out to you at home. So rest assured, there's no conflict of interest here whatsoever. Okay, so that's redunion.com.au if you'd like to go and send them a message to find out some information about your situation. I think we need as many hands on deck as we possibly can. So again, Jack, thank you for your time, and we hope to have you back on the show.